The phone rang at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Daniel was already in bed, reviewing quarterly reports on his tablet, when his wife's name lit up the screen. She'd been in California for 3 days on what she called a professional development retreat with her marketing firm. "Hey, honey," he answered, expecting to hear about seminars and networking events. Instead, her voice came through with an unfamiliar edge, not quite guilty, but defiant. "Rehearsed. We need to talk about our relationship." Daniel sat up straighter, muting the television. Through the phone, he could hear ocean waves and distant laughter. "Okay. What's going on?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking out here. About us. About what I need." She paused, and in that silence, Daniel felt something shift in his chest. "I think we should open up our marriage. Give each other freedom to explore other connections." The words landed like ice water. Daniel's hand tightened around the phone. "Open up our marriage? Where is this coming from?" "I've just realized that monogamy is kind of an outdated construct, you know? We're still young. We shouldn't limit ourselves." Her voice gained confidence as she spoke, as if she'd practiced this speech. "I'm not saying I don't love you. I do. But I need more than what we have. And honestly, I think you deserve the freedom too." Daniel swung his legs out of bed, his bare feet touching the cold hardwood floor. "And you're deciding this now? While you're 3,000 miles away?" "That's why I'm calling. I wanted to be honest with you instead of sneaking around." There was noise in the background, a man's voice, quickly shushed. "Look, I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you how things are going to be. We're open now. You can see other people too if you want. Just don't expect my loyalty to look like it did before." Daniel walked to the window, staring out at their quiet suburban street. The neighbor's porch light cast long shadows across perfectly manicured lawns. They'd lived in this house for 6 years. Built a life here. Or so he thought. "Is there someone else?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. She laughed, a short, brittle sound. "That's not the point. The point is that I refuse to be trapped in a conventional relationship that stifles my growth. I'm exploring what I need emotionally and physically. You should do the same." "When are you coming back?" "Sunday night. My flight lands at 9. Her tone softened slightly. "Look, I know this is sudden. But I think when you really think about it, you'll see this is healthy. We can still be partners. We're just expanding the parameters." Daniel closed his eyes. "Sure. Okay. Really?" She sounded surprised. "You're okay with this? You said you weren't asking for permission. So what does it matter if I'm okay with it?" His voice remained calm, measured. "Come home safe. We'll talk more then." After she hung up, Daniel stood at the window for a long time. The house felt different now, not like a home, but like a shell of something that used to matter. He thought about the woman he'd married 8 years ago, the one who'd cried at their wedding and promised forever. He wondered when she'd become this stranger who could casually blow up their life from a beach in California. Then he thought about the man's voice in the background. The way she'd shushed whoever it was. The forced casualness of her tone, like she was reading from a script written by someone else. Daniel picked up his phone again, but this didn't call her back. Instead, he opened his browser and searched, "Best divorce attorneys near me." Then, "How to protect assets in divorce." Finally, evidence of infidelity California trip. He had 3 days before she came home expecting him to be the same trusting husband she'd left behind. 3 days to become someone completely different. 3 days to prepare for war. Friday morning, Daniel called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. He'd barely slept, spending most of the night making lists and researching. By 8 a.m., he was sitting in a leather chair across from Richard Morrison, a divorce attorney whose name kept appearing in his searches with the words aggressive and wins. Morrison was in his 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of calm demeanor that came from seeing every ugly secret humanity had to offer. He listened without interrupting as Daniel explained the phone call, the work retreat, the unilateral declaration of an open marriage. "And you said yes?" Morrison asked, leaning back in his chair. I said okay. I didn't fight it. Smart. Morrison pulled out a legal pad. Fighting at that moment would have put her on guard. How long have you been married? 8 years. No kids. Assets. The house is in both names. We have joint accounts, but I earn about 3 times what she does. My 401k is substantial. Daniel pulled out his phone, showing Morrison a document he'd prepared. I listed everything here. Morrison studied the list, nodding. California's a no-fault state, but infidelity can still matter in asset division, especially if marital funds were used for the affair. Do you know who she's with? I have suspicions. Daniel pulled up his wife's Instagram, navigating to her tagged photos. This is from 6 months ago. Company party. He pointed to a man with his arm around his wife's shoulders. Too close. Too familiar. His name is Trevor Westwood. He works in her department. He posted about going to California this week too. Morrison made notes. We'll need to confirm they're together. Do you have access to credit card statements? Joint account. I checked this morning. Daniel showed him the charges: 2 first-class tickets to San Diego, separate rooms at the Coronado Resort, dinners for 2 at expensive restaurants. She's not even being subtle about it. The separate rooms are for deniability, but the pattern's clear. Morrison tapped his pen against the pad. Here's what we're going to do. Don't confront her when she gets back. Don't change your behavior at all. Act like you're considering this open marriage idea. Meanwhile, we document everything. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. You want me to pretend? I want you to protect yourself. If you explode, she'll lawyer up, hide assets, create her own narrative. Morrison leaned forward. But if you stay calm, keep gathering evidence, we can file first and control the situation. California's a community property state, but we can argue for a different split based on her behavior and the misuse of marital funds. They spent the next hour going through bank statements, credit card charges, email access, and social media. Daniel learned that his wife had been charging expensive dinners to their joint account for months, always on nights she'd said she was working late. There were purchases from Victoria's Secret and designer clothing stores in the weeks leading up to the California trip. She's been planning this, Daniel said, the reality sinking in. Yes. And now you're planning too. Morrison handed him a card. This is a private investigator. Former FBI. He's expensive but thorough. Have him document what he can while she's still in California. Photos, witnesses, anything that proves Trevor and your wife are more than colleagues. After leaving Morrison's office, Daniel sat in his car for 20 minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel. He thought about calling her, demanding the truth. But Morrison's voice echoed in his head. Don't change your behavior. Stay calm. Control the situation. He called the private investigator instead. By Friday evening, Daniel had hired the PI, changed all his individual account passwords, and moved half the money from their joint savings into a separate account Morrison had advised him to open. He documented every login, every transfer, every action, all justifiable as protecting himself in an open marriage where trust no longer existed. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife, having an amazing time. This place is beautiful. Miss you. Daniel stared at the message. 3 days ago, he would have responded immediately with something affectionate. Now, he saw it for what it was, a lie designed to maintain his complacency. He typed back, glad you're enjoying yourself. See you Sunday. Short. Neutral. Giving nothing away. That night, the PI called. I've got them. Separate rooms on paper, but she hasn't slept in hers once. I've got photos of them having breakfast together, holding hands on the beach, kissing in the hotel bar. A pause. I'm sorry, man. Don't be sorry, Daniel said, his voice harder than he recognized. Just document everything. Sunday night arrived with Daniel's stomach in knots. He'd spent the weekend transforming their home office into a command center, documents organized in locked drawers, Morrison's card hidden in his wallet, the pie's photos saved to a secure cloud drive. Then he'd cleaned everything up, making the house look exactly as it had when she left. The performance was about to begin. Her flight landed at 9:15. Daniel tracked it on his phone, watching the little airplane icon descend into the airport. By 10:30, he heard her car in the driveway. He was on the couch, pretending to watch a basketball game he couldn't have cared less about. She came through the door pulling her suitcase, her skin tanned, her hair lighter from the California sun. She looked happy, radiant, even, guilt-free. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag. "I'm exhausted. Flight was delayed." "I saw." Daniel stood, unsure of the protocol. Did they hug? Kiss? Shake hands? She made the decision for him, crossing the room for a brief, awkward embrace. She smelled different. New perfume, expensive. He wondered if Trevor had bought it for her. "So," she said, settling into the armchair across from him. "Have you thought about what I said? About us being open?" Daniel had rehearsed this moment with Morrison. Stay calm. Act thoughtful. Give her rope. "I have. It's not what I expected from our marriage, but I can see your point about exploring personal growth." Her eyebrows rose. "Really? You're okay with it?" "I'm trying to be mature about it." He kept his voice steady. "You're right that we're still young. And if you need this kind of freedom, then I guess we both deserve it." Relief flooded her face. "Oh, thank God. I was worried you'd be upset or possessive. This is so healthy, you know? We can still love each other and have security here while exploring other connections." "Ground rules, though," Daniel said, following Morrison's script. "We should probably establish some boundaries." "Sure, of course." She pulled her legs up under her, getting comfortable. "What are you thinking?" "Separate finances. If we're both seeing other people, we should each manage our own money. It's cleaner." She hesitated. "I mean, we've always shared everything." "That was when we were exclusively committed to each other. If we're opening things up, it makes sense to open up our financial independence too." He smiled. "Unless you're not serious about this." "No, I am. You're right. That's fair." She pulled out her phone. "I'll set up my own account this week." "Already done." Daniel handed her a folder. "I moved half our savings into your new account. Totally equal split. I figured you'd want access right away." She blinked at the folder, something flickering in her eyes. Surprise? Suspicion? But then she smiled. "Wow. You really are taking this seriously. You asked for an open relationship. I'm respecting that." He paused. "How was the retreat, by the way? I realized I didn't even ask about the seminars." "Oh, they were great. Really inspiring stuff about authentic living and breaking free from societal constraints." The words came easily, another rehearsed speech. "I feel like I've grown so much this week." "That's good. Did you go alone, or did other people from your office attend?" A barely perceptible pause. "A few people from my department. We did some team-building exercises." Daniel nodded, letting the lie sit between them. The pie's photos flashed through his mind, her and Trevor wrapped around each other in the hotel pool, kissing on the beach at sunset, his hand on her lower back as they entered their shared room. "I'm glad you had a good time," he said. They talked for another hour, small, meaningless conversation that felt like they were both reading scripts. She told him sanitized stories about California, carefully editing out every mention of Trevor. He pretended to believe her, responding with appropriate interest. When they finally went to bed, she kissed him on the cheek, the kind of kiss you'd give a brother, and rolled to her side of the bed. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering who this stranger beside him really was. Monday morning, he texted Morrison. "She bought it. What's next?" Morrison's response came immediately. "Good. Keep acting normal. I'm filing papers this week. Once she's served, she'll scramble for an attorney, but we'll already have the narrative established. She unilaterally opened the marriage while conducting an affair, misusing marital funds for the relationship. We're going for a favorable split. Daniel deleted the message and went to make coffee. His wife came down in her bathrobe, checking her phone with a small smile. Texting Trevor. Probably. Coffee? Daniel offered. Sure, thanks. She didn't look up from her screen. They'd shared this kitchen for 6 years, but this morning, they were nothing more than polite roommates. She'd wanted freedom. She'd wanted to have her affair and her security simultaneously. She had no idea that freedom came with a price, and Daniel was about to make her pay it in full. 3 weeks passed. Daniel maintained the performance flawlessly, pleasant, accommodating, interested in her days but not intrusive. His wife grew more comfortable, more careless. She stayed out late twice a week, claiming networking events but coming home with Trevor's cologne clinging to her clothes. She took phone calls in the other room, her voice low and intimate. She bought new lingerie with their joint credit card, the one Daniel hadn't closed yet, more evidence. Meanwhile, Daniel's life ran on 2 parallel tracks. On the surface, the understanding husband, adapting to their new arrangement. He went to work, came home, cooked dinner, asked about her day. He mentioned casually that he'd gone out for drinks with colleagues, let her think he might be exploring his own freedom. He never was. Every evening out was actually a meeting with Morrison or the PI, building their case. Underneath, the methodical dismantling of everything she expected to keep. Your wife made a critical mistake, Morrison said during one of their evening meetings, which Daniel had disguised as a happy hour with co-workers. She thinks you're passive. She thinks agreeing to her open marriage means you're weak. Maybe I was, Daniel admitted. I trusted her completely. Trust isn't weakness. But she exploited it. Morrison slid a thick folder across the table. The PI documented 15 separate meetings between your wife and Trevor Westwood over the past month. Dinners, hotels, his apartment. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. Daniel flipped through the photos. Each one felt like a small death, his wife laughing at Trevor's jokes, Trevor's hand on her waist, the two of them entering a hotel at lunch hour and not emerging for 2 hours. In one photo, she wore the necklace Daniel had given her for their anniversary. Her company has a morality clause, Morrison continued. Affairs between colleagues, especially when they interfere with work or involve deception, can be grounds for termination. Trevor's married too, by the way. His wife has no idea. Daniel looked up sharply. He's married. 10 years. 2 kids. Morrison's expression was grim. Your wife isn't the only one blowing up a family. That information sat heavy in Daniel's chest. Somewhere, another person was living his nightmare, still trusting and unaware. He pushed the thought aside. He couldn't save everyone. He could barely save himself. The papers are ready, Morrison said. I'll have her served at work on Friday. Maximum impact. Minimum warning. By the time she realizes what's happening, we'll already have temporary orders in place for the house and accounts. She'll hate me, Daniel said quietly. She already betrayed you. Her opinion doesn't matter anymore. Friday morning, Daniel woke before dawn. His wife was already gone, an early meeting, she'd said, though he knew it was breakfast with Trevor. He went through his morning routine mechanically, brewing coffee he didn't drink, checking email he didn't read. At 10 a.m., his phone buzzed. Morrison, process server just made contact. She's been served. Daniel's hands shook as he read the message. Somewhere across town, his wife was opening an envelope that would destroy the comfortable fiction she'd been living. She'd see the divorce petition, the evidence of her affair, the financial documentation showing her misuse of marital funds. She'd see her own text messages, retrieved through legal discovery from their phone plan. She'd see the PI's photos. She'd see that her understanding husband had been 10 steps ahead of her the entire time. The call came at 10:47 a.m. What the hell is this? Her voice was shrill, panicked. Nothing like the calm, confident woman who'd called from California. You filed for divorce? You're claiming I had an affair. You did have an affair, Daniel said calmly. With Trevor. I have documentation. You've been spying on me, having me followed. You announced we had an open marriage. I was protecting myself financially in that arrangement. His voice was flat, rehearsed. Everything I did was legal and justified. This is insane. You can't just, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. You should get one. I hear they're expensive. Daniel, please. Can we just talk about this? I'll come home right now. The house is mine for now. Temporary orders. You'll need to stay somewhere else until the divorce is final. He paused. Maybe Trevor can help you out. Though you should probably know, he's married. His wife found out this morning too. The silence on the other end was deafening. What did you do? She whispered. I told you. I protected myself. Daniel felt cold, detached. His wife deserved to know, don't you think? Just like I deserved to know before you decided to blow up our marriage from a California beach. You're cruel. No. I'm done being naive. 2 months later, Daniel sat in Morrison's conference room, reviewing the final settlement. Outside, November rain streaked the windows, turning the city into a blur of grey and amber lights. Inside, the paperwork told a story of consequences. His wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife, had lost almost everything. She'll walk away with her car, her personal accounts, and about $20,000, Morrison said, tapping the agreement. You keep the house, your retirement accounts, and the majority of shared assets. She also agreed to pay half the legal fees. How did you manage that? Daniel asked. California's a community property state. Her attorney convinced her that going to trial would be worse. We had the evidence. The affair. The misuse of marital funds, every fancy dinner, every hotel room with Trevor charged to joint accounts. Her company's morality investigation. Morrison smiled grimly. She wanted out fast and quiet. The morality investigation had ended predictably. Both his wife and Trevor had been fired 3 weeks ago. The company couldn't keep employees who'd been conducting an affair on company time, using company retreats as cover, especially after Trevor's wife threatened her own lawsuit. Trevor had ghosted Daniel's wife the day after he was fired, blocking her number and returning to his own spouse to beg for forgiveness. Daniel had heard through mutual friends that his wife had shown up at Trevor's house, crying, only to have the door slammed in her face. The woman who'd wanted freedom and excitement had ended up with neither, just unemployment, an angry ex-boyfriend's wife threatening legal action, and a divorce settlement that left her starting over from scratch. She wants to talk to you, Morrison said. She's been calling my office. What could she possibly have to say? Probably that she's sorry. That she made a mistake. That she wants another chance. Morrison leaned back. Seen it 100 times. They never think there will be consequences until the consequences arrive. Daniel thought about the phone call from California, her voice casual and cruel as she'd announced she was done being loyal. He thought about the weeks she'd come home smelling like another man, lying to his face, spending their money on her affair while he pretended to believe her. He thought about the woman he'd married 8 years ago, the one he'd loved completely, and realized she'd disappeared long before that phone call. Maybe she'd never existed at all. Maybe he'd been in love with a performance. No, Daniel said finally. I don't want to talk to her. Let's finish this. The divorce was finalized on December 15th, almost exactly 3 months after the California call. Daniel didn't attend the final hearing. Morrison handled it alone. It was over in minutes. 8 years of marriage, reduced to signatures on legal documents. That evening, Daniel sat in his house, just his house now, and felt the weight of everything lift slightly. The betrayal still hurt. The loss of what he'd thought they had still ached. But underneath that was something new, relief. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through social media out of curiosity. His ex-wife's accounts were mostly private now, but he could see her profile picture had changed. She looked tired, older, the California glow long gone. She'd moved back in with her parents according to mutual friends. She was working retail while job hunting, her marketing career derailed by the firing. Trevor had somehow saved his marriage, though friends said his wife watched him like a hawk now. Trust, once broken, never fully repaired. Daniel closed the app. Their problems weren't his anymore. Instead, he opened his email and responded to a message from a college friend who'd reached out after hearing about the divorce. She'd suggested coffee, nothing serious, just reconnecting. Daniel had ignored it for weeks. Not ready. Now he typed, "Coffee sounds great. How's Saturday?" Life after betrayal wasn't about revenge, though the successful divorce had felt like justice. It wasn't about winning, though he'd certainly protected himself. It was about waking up each morning and slowly, painfully, becoming someone new. Someone who trusted more carefully. Someone who didn't ignore red flags out of love. Someone who understood that loyalty wasn't a cage or a limitation, but a gift you gave to people who deserved it. His ex-wife had called from California to announce she didn't owe him loyalty anymore. She'd been right. In a way, she didn't. But loyalty was reciprocal. The moment she'd freed herself from her commitment, she'd freed him from his. She'd wanted freedom so badly she'd destroyed everything stable in her life to get it. Now she had all the freedom in the world, and nothing else. Daniel closed his laptop and walked to the window. Rain was still falling, but lighter now. The street lights reflected in puddles, turning the ordinary suburban scene into something almost beautiful. He'd survived. He'd protected himself. He'd learned the hard lesson that some people only loved you as long as it was convenient, as long as you stayed small and trusting and easy to control. But he'd also learned he was stronger than he'd thought. That he could make hard decisions. That he could look at betrayal directly and choose his own path forward, even when it hurt. Somewhere out there, his ex-wife was probably regretting everything. Wishing she could take back the California call. Wanting him to forgive her and reset the clock. But time only moved forward, and consequences were real. She'd learned that too late. Daniel had learned it just in time. He turned from the window, ready to sleep in a house that was finally, completely his own. Tomorrow, he'd have that coffee. Someday, maybe he'd trust someone again. But tonight, he'd simply survived, and sometimes, survival was enough.